Captain Jake Morrison stood at the viewing port of the human ship New Dawn, watching the massive space station grow larger as they approached. Nexus Prime was unlike anything he had ever seen. The station stretched for miles in all directions, its metal surface covered with lights that blinked in patterns he did not understand. Hundreds of ships of different shapes and sizes moved around it, like insects around a bright light. "First time seeing something like this, Captain?" asked Lieutenant Lisa Hayes as she joined him at the window. Her voice carried the same mix of wonder and nervousness that Jake felt. "First time for all of us," Jake replied. He turned to look at his small crew. Danny Cooper was checking his tools at the engineering station, his hands moving with practiced skill. Amy Rodriguez sat at her desk, reading through files about the different alien species they were about to meet. All of them had trained for this moment for years, but training was different from the real thing. "Remember," Jake said to his team, "we are here to make friends, not enemies. Earth is counting on us to make a good first impression. We follow the rules, we stay polite, and we do not give anyone a reason to think badly of humans." The communications system crackled to life. A voice spoke in perfect English, though it sounded strange, like it was coming from underwater. "Human vessel New Dawn, this is Nexus Prime Control. You are cleared to dock at Bay 77 Alpha." "Welcome to Nexus Prime." "Thank you, Control," Jake responded. "New Dawn acknowledges Bay 77 Alpha." As their ship moved closer to the docking bay, Jake could see aliens working on the station's outer hull. They wore suits that looked nothing like human spacesuits. Some had 4 arms, others had tails, and one group seemed to float without any visible means of support. The docking process was smooth, though Jake noticed that their bay was smaller than the ones being used by other ships. When the airlock opened, they were greeted by a group of officials from different species. The leader was tall and covered in green scales, with yellow eyes that seemed to look right through them. "I am Commander Zethrak of the Vorthan Empire," the reptilian alien sighed. His voice was deep and rough like gravel. "I welcome you to Nexus Prime on behalf of the Galactic Federation." Jake stepped forward and gave a slight bow, as he had been taught. "I am Captain Jake Morrison, representing Earth and humanity. We are honored to be here." Zethrak looked at Jake for a long moment, then at the rest of the human crew. His yellow eyes seemed to be measuring them, weighing them. "Yes," he said finally. "You are smaller than I expected. Follow me." As they walked through the station's corridors, Jake was amazed by what he saw. The hallways were wide enough for creatures much larger than humans. The walls were covered with writing in dozens of different languages. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved past them, some stopping to stare at the humans with curiosity. Most of the aliens they passed were much larger than humans. Some had thick, armored skin. Others moved with a grace that suggested great strength. Jake began to understand why Commander Zithrak had called them small. They entered a large room filled with representatives from many different species. The air was thick with the smell of different alien bodies and the sound of conversations, in languages Jake could not understand. When the humans entered, the room grew quiet. "Fellow beings," Commander Zethrak announced, "I present to you the humans of Earth. They have come to join our great federation." The response was polite, but cold. Jake could sense that most of the aliens were not impressed. He heard whispers that his translation device picked up fragments of "so small," weak-looking, primitive. A tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms approached them. "I am Trade Minister Caliph. Your species wishes to trade with the Federation?" "Yes," Jake replied. "Earth has much to offer. We have unique foods, art, music, and technology that we believe could benefit everyone." Caliph looked at a small device. In one of his hands, "According to our scans, Your technology is several hundred years behind our standard. What could you possibly offer us? Jake felt heat rise in his cheeks, but kept his voice calm. We may not have your advanced technology, but humans are creative. We solve problems in ways others might not think of. We believe diversity makes everyone stronger. Several aliens made sounds that Jake guessed were laughter. Commander Zethrak raised a clawed hand for silence. Of course, he said. Every species has its place in the Federation. Even the smallest contributions have value. The way he said, it made Jake's jaw tighten, but he said nothing. Amy Rodriguez stepped forward. We have brought samples of human culture to share. Perhaps we could arrange a presentation? How thoughtful, said a female alien with silver skin and large black eyes. Though I wonder if human culture might be too simple for most species here to appreciate. Danny Cooper's hands clenched into fists, but Lisa Hayes placed a gentle hand on his arm. Jake forced himself to smile. We would be happy to share what we have and learn from all of you. The reception continued for another hour. The humans were introduced to various species, each interaction reinforcing the same message. Humanity was new, small, weak, and not particularly important. Jake noticed that other species spoke to each other as equals, but when they spoke to humans, they used the tone adults might use with children. After the formal presentations, the group moved to a dining area where different species could sample each other's food. Jake watched as aliens casually lifted objects that would have required multiple humans to move. He saw creatures that could bend metal with their bare hands, and others whose skin seemed to deflect sharp objects. Captain, Amy whispered to him, I want to document some of the cultural practices I'm seeing. Would it be okay if I explored the station a bit? Jake hesitated. He did not like the idea of splitting up the team, but Amy was their cultural expert. Stay in contact, he said finally, and be careful. As Amy left, Commander Zethrak approached Jake. Your people seem very interested in our ways. We believe in learning from others, Jake replied. And what have you learned so far? Jake chose his words carefully. That the galaxy is full of remarkable beings with much to teach us. Zethrak's mouth curved in what might have been a smile, showing rows of sharp teeth. Indeed, and I hope you also learn that strength is what matters most in the galaxy. The strong protect the weak, guide the weak, and sometimes must correct the weak when they step out of line. On Earth, we believe that different kinds of strength exist, Jake said. Physical strength is important, but so are intelligence, creativity, and compassion. Compassion, Zethrak repeated the word like it tasted bad. An interesting concept. Tell me, Captain, what happens when your compassion meets someone else's strength? Before Jake could answer, his communicator buzzed. Amy's voice came through, tight with concern. Captain, you need to see this. I'm in Section 12, Level 7. There's something happening here that I think you should know about. Jake excused himself from Commander Zethrak and made his way to Amy's location. He found her in a smaller corridor, looking shaken. Near her, a small alien with gray skin and large eyes was cowering against the wall. The creature had visible bruises on its arms and face. What happened? Jake asked. I saw Vorthan guards beating this being, Amy said quietly. They said he was stealing, but all I saw was him picking up some dropped food. When I called out for them to stop, they just laughed and hit him harder. Jake knelt beside the injured. Alien, are you okay? Do you need medical help? The creature looked up at him with large, frightened eyes. You. You are the humans? The new ones? Yes, Jake said gently. We're here to help if we can. The alien shook his head quickly. No, you cannot help. You are new. You do not understand. The Vorthans, they are strong. They do what they want. No one stops them. Amy looked at Jake with anger in her eyes. Captain, we can't just let this happen. Amy, Jake said quietly, we're guests here. We can't interfere with their local customs. Beating innocent beings is not a custom, Amy replied. It's wrong. As they helped the injured alien to his feet, Jake noticed Commander Zethrak watching them from the end of the corridor. The Vorthin's yellow eyes seemed to glow in the dim light, and his expression was unreadable. Jake realized that their first day on Nexus Prime was about to become much more complicated than anyone had planned. Amy Rodriguez walked through the cultural district of Nexus Prime, her tablet in hand as she recorded notes about the different alien societies she observed. The area was filled with shops, art displays, and gathering places where various species shared their traditions. She had been documenting everything for the past 2 hours. Fascinated by the diversity of life in the galaxy, the human team had split up after breakfast to cover more ground. Captain Morrison was in meetings with trade officials. Lisa Hayes was reviewing technical specifications with the Engineering Council, and Danny Cooper was examining the station's power systems. Amy preferred this solo work anyway. She could move at her own pace and really observe how different species interacted with each other. She stopped at a display showing Keth artwork. The Keth were the small, gray-skinned people she had seen being mistreated the day before. Their art was beautiful, with flowing lines and soft colors that seemed to change as she looked at them. A young Keth stood nearby, watching her nervously. "This is wonderful," Amy said to him, pointing at a painting that showed what looked like a sunset over water. "Did you create this?" The Keth looked around quickly, then nodded. "Yes, human. I made it, but please do not tell the Vorthins you spoke to me. They do not like when we talk to others without permission." Amy felt anger rise in her chest. "You need permission to talk to people?" "The Vorthins say we are under their protection," the Keth explained in a whisper. "They say we are too weak to make our own decisions, so they decide for us." Before Amy could respond, she heard heavy footsteps behind her. She turned to see Commander Zethrak approaching, flanked by 2 other Vorthins. The Keth artist immediately looked at the floor and began to back away. "Miss Rodriguez," Commander Zethrak said, his voice carrying a friendly tone that did not reach. His cold yellow eyes. "How interesting to find you here so far from your delegation." "I'm documenting cultural practices," Amy replied, keeping her voice steady. "It's part of my job as cultural liaison." "Of course," Zethrak said. He looked at the Keth, who was now trembling. "And what have you learned from our Keth friends?" "I learned that they create beautiful art," Amy said carefully. Zethrak made a sound that might have been laughter. "Yes, they are useful for simple tasks. Art, cleaning, basic labor. They understand their place in the order of things." He turned his attention back to Amy. "Tell me, what do you think of the natural order?" Amy chose her words carefully. "On Earth, we believe that all thinking beings deserve respect and the chance to make their own choices." "How naive," Zethrak said, stepping closer. "You humans are new to the galaxy. You do not understand how things work out here. The strong lead, the weak follow. This is the way of nature." "Maybe on your world," Amy replied. "But humans see things differently." Zethrak's expression shifted. The fake friendliness disappeared, replaced by something harder. "Is that so? Tell me, Miss Rodriguez, what makes you think human opinions matter here?" Amy felt a chill run down her spine, but she stood her ground. "Every species' opinions matter. That's what the Federation is supposed to be about." "The Federation," Zethrak repeated slowly, "is about order, about knowing one's place. Something your species has yet to learn." He gestured to his companions. "Perhaps you would benefit from a more private discussion about galactic realities." Amy looked around and realized they had moved to a quieter section of the district. The Keth artist was long gone, and there were fewer people around. I should. Return to my team, she said, trying to keep her voice calm. Not yet, Zethrak said, blocking her path. You see, Miss Rodriguez, your behavior yesterday was very concerning. Interfering in Vorthan discipline, questioning our methods. This shows a dangerous lack of understanding. I saw someone being hurt, Amy said. I couldn't just stand by and watch. And that, Zethrak said, is exactly the problem. You cannot just do whatever you feel like doing. There are rules here. There is order. The Vorthans maintain that order. Amy tried to step around him, but he moved to block her again. Commander, I need to get back to my delegation. You need to learn your place, Zethrak said, his voice growing colder. You humans come here acting like you belong, like your opinions matter, but you are weak, small, ignorant of how the galaxy really works. We're here as guests, Amy said, her heart starting to beat faster. Captain Morrison is expecting me. Captain Morrison, Zethrak said with obvious mockery, is learning the same lesson you are about to learn. That humans are nothing special. That you are just another small species that needs guidance from your betters. Amy activated her communicator with one hand while keeping her eyes on Zethrak. Captain Morrison, this is Amy. I'm in the Cultural District, Section 15. I think I need... Zethrak's clawed hand shot out and grabbed her wrist, squeezing hard enough to make her drop the communicator. I was not finished speaking, he said. Amy tried to pull away, but his grip was like iron. His claws dug into her skin, and she could feel them breaking through. Let go of me, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Not until you understand, Zethrak said. You humans need to learn that there are consequences for stepping out of line, for interfering where you do not belong. You're hurting me, Amy said. Good, Zethrak replied. Pain is an excellent teacher. When you return to your little delegation, you will remember this moment. You will remember that the Vorthans are not to be questioned or challenged. Amy tried again to break free, but Zethrak's grip only tightened. She could feel blood running down her arm where his claws had punctured her skin. This is assault, she said through gritted teeth. This is education, Zethrak replied. Consider it a free lesson in galactic politics. The strong do what they want. The weak suffer what they must. This is how things have always been, and how they will always be. From behind Zethrak, Amy heard a gasp. She looked over his shoulder to see a group of aliens from different species watching the scene. Some looked shocked, others seemed afraid, but none moved to help. They just watched as the Vorthan commander held the human woman against her will. You see? Zethrak said, noticing her looking at the crowd. No one will help you, because they understand the order of things. They know not to interfere with Vorthan business. Amy's training kicked in. She stopped struggling and instead began to memorize details. Zethrak's rank insignia, the exact location, the faces of the witnesses. If she survived this, she would need evidence. Are you learning, Miss Rodriguez? Zethrak asked, his grip still tight on her wrist. I'm learning, Amy said quietly. Good. And what are you learning? Amy looked directly into his yellow eyes. I'm learning that bullies are the same everywhere in the galaxy. Zethrak's expression darkened, and for a moment, Amy thought he might strike her. Instead, he squeezed her wrist one more time, hard enough to make her gasp in pain, then let her go. Remember this lesson, he said, and share it with your captain. Humans would do well to accept their place quietly, rather than learn it the hard way. Amy picked up her communicator with her uninjured hand. I'll remember, she said. Excellent, Zethrak said. He turned to his companions. Come, our work here is done. As the Vorthans walked away, Amy looked at her injured wrist. The puncture wounds were deep, and blood was still flowing freely. She could already see bruises forming where Zethrak had gripped her. The crowd of alien witnesses began to disperse, most of them avoiding eye contact with her. But a few lingered, and Amy could see something in their expressions. Not just fear or shock, but something else. Recognition, perhaps, or sympathy. A small voice spoke near her feet. She looked down to see the Keth artist who had been showing her his paintings. "Human lady," he whispered, "you should clean those wounds. Vorthen claws carry bacteria that can cause infection." "Thank you," Amy said softly. "And human lady," the Keth continued, "you were right yesterday. What they did was wrong. But no one has ever been strong enough to stop them before." Amy looked at the small alien, then at her wounded wrist, then back at the corridor where Zethrak had disappeared. "Maybe," she said quietly. "It's time for that to change." She activated her communicator. "Captain Morrison, this is Amy. I need to return to the ship immediately. And, sir, we need to talk." Captain Jake Morrison sat in the medical bay of the New Dawn, watching Danny Cooper carefully clean Amy's wounds. The puncture marks on her wrist were deep, and the bruising around them was already turning dark purple. Amy winced as Danny implied. "Antiseptic," but she did not make a sound. "The medical scanner shows no permanent damage," Danny said quietly. "But these wounds will take time to heal properly." Jake nodded, but his attention was focused on Amy's face. She looked tired, but there was something else in her eyes. A kind of cold anger that he had never seen from her before. "Tell me exactly." "What happened?" Jake said. Amy recounted the entire incident, from her conversation with the Keth artist to Zethrak's assault. She spoke in a calm, professional voice, but Jake could hear the tension underneath. Lisa Hayes stood nearby, her hands clenched into fists as she listened. "He grabbed you in front of witnesses?" Lisa asked. "At least a dozen beings from different species," Amy confirmed. "They all saw what happened. None of them tried to help, but they saw it." Jake stood up and walked to the porthole, looking out at the massive space station. "This changes things," he said quietly. "Captain," Amy said, "I know we're supposed to be diplomatic, but nothing." Jake interrupted. "What Zethrak did was assault, pure and simple. We cannot let this stand." Danny finished bandaging Amy's wrist and packed away his medical supplies. "So what do we do, Captain? File a complaint with station security?" Jake turned back to his crew. "We follow protocol, the real protocol." Lisa raised an eyebrow. "Which protocol?" Jake walked to his personal quarters and returned with a sealed case that none of them had seen before. He placed it on the table and entered a long code into its lock. The case opened with a soft hiss. Inside were communication devices, data, chips, and documents that looked different from their standard diplomatic materials. Jake picked up one of the communication devices and activated it. "This is New Dawn Alpha, requesting immediate priority contact with Earth Command," he said into the device. The response came within seconds. "New Dawn Alpha, this is Admiral Ryan Parker aboard the Defender. We have been monitoring your situation. What is your status?" Jake's crew exchanged surprised looks. Admiral Parker was one of Earth's most experienced military commanders, but they had no idea he was in the area. "Admiral, we have a Code 7 situation," Jake said. "Assault on diplomatic personnel by station authority figures. Requesting immediate support." "Understood, Captain. Code 7 protocols are now in effect. Expect contact within 12 hours. Parker out." Jake set down the communicator and looked at his team. "There's something you all need to know. This mission was never just about trade negotiations." "What do you mean?" Amy asked. "Earth Command knew this might happen," Jake explained. "They knew that appearing weak might invite exactly this kind of treatment, so they prepared for it." Lisa leaned forward. "What kind of preparation?" Jake pulled out a data chip and inserted it into the ship's computer. A star chart appeared on the screen, showing their current location and several other points nearby. 3 Earth vessels have been shadowing us since we left home, Jake said. They've been using advanced stealth technology that the Galactic Federation doesn't know we have. The Defender, the Guardian, and the Sentinel, all under Admiral Parker's command. Stealth ships? Danny asked. How is that possible? Our technology is supposed to be centuries behind theirs. Jake smiled grimly. That's what we wanted them to think. Earth has been preparing for first contact for 50 years. We knew we might face species that would try to dominate us, so we made sure we had options. Amy looked at the star chart. What kind of options? The kind that make bullies think twice, Jake replied. He activated his communicator again. Admiral Parker, this is Captain Morrison. Please proceed with Phase 2. Acknowledged, Captain. Phase 2 is a go. Within minutes, the lights on Nexus Prime began to flicker. Jake's crew watched through the porthole as sections of the station seemed to lose power, then regain it, then lose it again. What's happening? Lisa asked. Electronic warfare demonstration, Jake explained. Our ships are showing the station's defenders that their systems are not as secure as they think. Jake's communicator buzzed. Captain Morrison, this is Commander. Zethruck, there seem to be some technical difficulties with our station. Perhaps your people have some insight into these problems? Jake picked up the communicator. Commander, I'd be happy to discuss technical matters. But first, I think we need to address what happened to my cultural liaison. There was a long pause. I do not know what you mean. I think you do, Jake said calmly. Amy Rodriguez was assaulted by a Vorthan officer earlier today. I have medical evidence and witness testimony. I'm sure you understand that this is a very serious matter. Another pause. Perhaps we should meet to discuss this misunderstanding. It's not a misunderstanding, Jake replied. It's assault, but yes, we should meet. I'll be bringing my full diplomatic team. Of course, shall we say 1 hour? Perfect. Oh, and Commander, you might want to fix those power fluctuations before we meet. They seem to be getting worse. Jake ended the communication and turned to his team. Amy, I want you to come to this meeting. You need to face Zethrock again, but this time you won't be alone. Captain, Amy said, what if this makes things worse? What if they decide to kick humanity out of the Federation? Jake walked back to his secure case and pulled out another device. Amy, let me show you something. He activated the device, and a holographic display appeared showing detailed information about Vorthan military installations, trade routes, and resource locations. How do we have this information? Lisa asked. Because while they were looking down on us as primitive, our intelligence services were gathering data about every major species in the Federation. We know their strengths, their weaknesses, their secrets. We know things they don't think anyone knows. Danny whistled softly. That's impressive, but is it enough? It's a start, Jake said. But the real message isn't the information we gathered. It's how we gathered it without them noticing. It's the stealth ships they never detected. It's the electronic warfare capabilities they're experiencing right now. Amy touched her bandaged wrist. So this was all planned? Not the specific incident. Jake clarified. We hoped it wouldn't be necessary. But Earth Command knew that someone might test us, might try to push us around to see how we'd react. They wanted to make sure we had the tools to push back. Lisa stood up. What happens next? Next, we go to that meeting, Jake said. And we make it clear that humanity is not as helpless as we appear, that there are consequences for putting hands on humans. Jake began packing away the materials from the secure case. There's one more thing you all need to know. Admiral Parker's ships aren't just here for show. They're fully armed and ready for combat if necessary. But that's not the real threat. What is? Amy asked. The real threat is that if this situation isn't resolved peacefully, Earth will release all the intelligence we've gathered to every species in the Federation. Every secret, every weakness, every embarrassing detail about Vorthan operations. It would destroy their reputation and their power base. Danny grinned. That's brilliant. They can't fight all of us, and they can't afford to look weak in front of everyone else. Exactly, Jake said. But we're hoping it doesn't come to that. We'd rather solve this with words than with warfare, either electronic or conventional. Amy stood up, testing her injured wrist. So when we go to this meeting, we're not going as victims asking for justice. We're going as equals demanding respect. That's right, Jake confirmed. And if Zethrak or anyone else thinks they can intimidate us, they're about to learn how wrong they are. Jake activated his communicator one more time. Admiral Parker, this is Morrison. We're going into the meeting now. Please maintain ready status. Understood, Captain. All ships are standing by. Good hunting. Jake looked at his team. Are you ready to show the galaxy what humans are really capable of? Amy flexed her bandaged hand and smiled. Let's go teach some bullies a lesson. As they prepared to leave the ship, the lights on Nexus Prime flickered again, and Jake could see alien ships moving away from the station in obvious concern. Whatever was causing the power fluctuations had the entire station on edge. One more thing, Jake said as they reached the airlock. Remember, we're not here to conquer anyone. We're here to establish that humans will not be victims. There's a difference. The airlock opened, and the 4 humans stepped onto Nexus Prime, no longer as supplicants hoping for acceptance, but as representatives of a species that had just announced it would not be pushed around. The meeting room on Nexus Prime was filled with representatives from a dozen different species. Captain Morrison and his team sat on one side of a large metal table, while Commander Zethrak and several other Vorthan officers sat on the other. The air was thick with tension. Station Administrator Velox, a tall blue-skinned alien with 4 arms, tried to maintain control of the situation. We are here to discuss the unfortunate misunderstanding between the humans and the Vorthans, he said. There was no misunderstanding, Jake said firmly. There was an assault. Commander Zethrak physically attacked my cultural liaison. Zethrak leaned back in his chair, his yellow eyes showing no concern. I merely corrected some inappropriate behavior. The human interfered with Vorthan security operations. By asking you to stop beating an innocent being? Amy said, her voice steady, despite the anger Jake could see in her eyes. The Keth was stealing, Zethrak replied. Vorthan law was being enforced. Your interference was inappropriate and required correction. Administrator Velox looked uncomfortable. Perhaps we can find a solution that satisfies both parties. The solution is simple, Jake said. Commander Zethrak assaulted a member of my crew. He needs to be held accountable for his actions. Zethrak laughed, a harsh sound that made several aliens in the room flinch. Accountable? To whom? You humans have been here for 2 days. You have no authority, no power, no standing to demand anything. Is that what you think? Jake asked quietly. That is what I know, Zethrak replied. You are a weak species from a backward world. You have nothing we want and nothing we fear. Jake looked around the room at the other alien representatives. What about the rest of you? Do you agree with Commander Zethrak? Most of the aliens looked away, unwilling to challenge the Vorthans directly. But a few met Jake's eyes, and he could see uncertainty there. It does not matter what they think, Zethrak said, standing up. The only thing that matters is strength, and humans have none. That was when Jake decided to end the charade. He stood up slowly and walked around the table until he was standing directly in front of Zethrak. You're right about one thing, Jake said. Strength is what matters, but you're wrong about humans having none. Zethrak stepped closer, towering over Jake. Prove it, little human. Jake activated his communicator. Admiral Parker, this is Morrison. Execute. The word was barely out of Jake's mouth when every Vorthan weapon in the room went dead. The energy weapons on their belts stopped humming. The communication devices on their uniforms went dark. Even the electronic locks on their equipment cases clicked open. Zethrak grabbed for his weapon, but nothing happened when he pulled the trigger. He stared at it in confusion, then pressed buttons on his communicator. Also dead. What did you do? He demanded. We showed you what human technology is really capable of, Jake replied calmly. Right now, every Vorthan military device on this station has been neutralized. Your weapons, your communications, your security systems. All of it. Zethrak looked around the room wildly. The other alien representatives were staring in shock. Some were checking their own devices, which were still working perfectly. This is impossible, Zethrak said. Our technology is centuries ahead of yours. That's what we wanted you to think, Jake said. We let you scan our ships. We let you examine our basic equipment. We wanted you to underestimate us. Administrator Velox spoke up, his voice shaking. How long have you been capable of this? Capable? Of what? Jake asked. Selective electronic warfare? Advanced stealth technology? Comprehensive intelligence gathering? He paused. About 50 years. Jake walked back to his team and picked up a datapad. Would you like to see what else we're capable of? For instance, we know about the Vorthan mining operation on Kepler-7 that violates Federation environmental laws. We know about the weapons shipments to the Zarkan rebels that violate Federation arms treaties. We know about the slave labor camps on Vorthan Colony 3 that violate Federation citizenship rights. With each word, Zethrak's face grew darker. Where did you get that information? The same way we got information about every major species in the Federation, Jake replied. While you were looking down on us as primitives, we were learning everything we could about all of you. Amy stood up, her bandaged wrist visible to everyone in the room. You grabbed me because you thought I was weak. You thought humans were weak. You thought no one would stand up to you. You are weak, Zethrak snarled, but Jake could hear the uncertainty in his voice now. Really? Jake asked. He activated his communicator again. Admiral Parker, please decloak the fleet. Through the large windows of the meeting room, 3 massive human ships suddenly appeared near the station. They had been invisible just moments before, but now they hung in space like sleeping giants. Each one was larger than anything the Vorthans had brought to the station dot. The room erupted in gasps and shocked voices. Several aliens jumped to their feet, staring out the windows. Those ships have been watching this station for 6 days, Jake said. You never saw them. Their sensors never detected them. They could have attacked at any time, but we chose to try diplomacy first. Zethrak was staring out the window, his mouth open. This is not possible, he whispered. It's very possible, Jake replied. And if you think the ships are impressive, wait until you see what they can do. Jake nodded to Lisa, who activated her own communicator. Guardian, this is Hayes. Please demonstrate defensive grid. Outside, one of the human ships began to glow with a soft blue light. The light expanded outward in a sphere until it surrounded the entire ship. Then, smaller lights began to appear all around the station. What you're seeing, Lisa explained, is a defensive energy grid. Right now, our ships have complete control of this station's defensive systems. If we wanted to, we could cut power to the entire station, disable all the ships in the docking bays, or prevent anyone from leaving. But we don't want to, Jake added quickly. We're not here to conquer anyone. We're here to establish that humans will not be victims. Danny stepped forward. Those power fluctuations you've been experiencing? That was us, running diagnostics on your systems. We wanted to understand how everything worked before we made our move. Administrator Velox found his voice. Why are you telling us this? Why reveal your capabilities? Because, Jake said, we want to establish a new relationship with the Federation. One based on mutual respect, not on who can beat up whom. Zethric finally seemed to recover from his shock. This proves nothing, so you have some advanced technology. You are still just one small species against the entire Federation. Are we? Jake asked. He activated his datapad, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the room. It showed detailed intelligence files on every major species in the Federation. We know which species are tired of Vorthan bullying, Jake said. We know which ones would support a change in leadership. We know which ones have been looking for someone strong enough to stand up to you. The display changed to show communication logs. We've already been in contact with several of them. The Keth, the Altarians, the Centauri Collective. They're all very interested in our intelligence files about Vorthan illegal activities. Zethrac's hands clenched into fists. You would not dare. Wouldn't we? Amy asked, stepping forward. You put your hands on me because you thought there would be no consequences. You were wrong. Jake looked around the room at all the alien representatives. Here's what's going to happen. Commander Zethric is going to formally apologize to Amy Rodriguez for his assault. The Vorthan Empire is going to acknowledge that they misjudged human capabilities. And from now on, interactions between our species will be conducted with mutual respect. And if we refuse? Zethric asked. Then we release everything, Jake said simply. Every illegal operation, every violation of Federation law, every secret deal. We send it to every species in the Federation simultaneously. By tomorrow, the Vorthan Empire's reputation will be destroyed. The room was silent for a long moment. Then Administrator Velox spoke up. Commander Zethric, I think you should consider the humans' proposal very carefully. Zethric looked around the room. The other alien representatives were watching him, waiting to see what he would do. Outside the windows, the human ships continued to hover like silent threats. You have made your point, Zethric said finally. But this is not over. Yes, it is, Jake replied. The only question now is whether it ends with an apology and a new understanding, or with your empire's reputation in ruins. Your choice. Amy stepped closer to Zethric, her injured wrist held high so everyone could see the bandages. I'm waiting for that apology, Commander. Zethric stared at her for a long moment, his yellow eyes burning with anger and something else, something that might have been respect. Very well, he said through gritted teeth. I apologize for my actions. Toward you, Amy Rodriguez. They were inappropriate. And Jake prompted. Zethrac's jaw tightened. And the Vorthan Empire acknowledges that we underestimated human capabilities. Jake nodded. Good. Now we can start building a real relationship. Outside, the human ships began to fade from view as their stealth systems reactivated. But everyone in the room knew they were still there, watching and waiting. The meeting room was silent after Zethrac's forced apology. Captain Morrison could see the shock on the faces of the alien representatives around the table. They had just watched the most powerful military force in the Federation be humbled by a species they had considered primitive just hours before. Jake looked at Commander Zethric, who was standing stiffly with his hands clenched at his sides. The Vorthan's yellow eyes burned with anger, but there was something else there now. Something that looked like grudging respect. Thank you for the apology, Commander, Jake said calmly. Now we need to discuss what happens next. What do you mean? Administrator Velox asked nervously. Jake walked to the window and looked out at the space where the human ships had appeared. They were invisible again, but everyone knew they were still there. We've made our point about human capabilities. But we didn't come here to destroy the Vorthan Empire or take over the Federation. Then what do you want? Zethrak asked, his voice tight with controlled anger. We want what we said from the beginning, Amy replied, stepping forward. Respect. Fair treatment. The chance to be part of the galactic community as equals, not as victims or servants. Jake activated his datapad, and the holographic display showed the intelligence files again. These files contained enough information to seriously damage the Vorthan Empire's standing in the Federation. But we're not going to release them. Several aliens around the table looked surprised. Zethrak's eyes narrowed. Why not? Because, Jake said, destroying you doesn't help anyone. It would create chaos, power struggles, and probably violence. That's not what we want. Lisa stepped up beside Jake. Instead, we're proposing something different. A new relationship between our species based on mutual respect and cooperation. Cooperation? Zethrak said the word like it tasted bad. Yes, Jake replied. You have military strength and established trade networks. We have advanced technology that you clearly didn't know existed. Working together, both our species could benefit. Danny activated his own device, and the display changed to show technical specifications. For example, our stealth technology could be adapted for peaceful uses. Exploration ships that could study dangerous phenomena without being detected. Medical vessels that could reach disaster areas without being targeted by hostile forces. And in return? Zethrak asked. In return, Jake said, the Vorthan Empire helps protect smaller species like the Keth instead of oppressing them. You use your influence to make the Federation a place where strength protects the weak instead of exploiting them. Amy walked over to the window where she could see into the cultural district below. Commander, you said that the strong lead and the weak follow, but you're wrong about what makes someone strong. Zethrak turned to look at her. Explain. Real strength isn't about who can hit harder or who has bigger weapons, Amy said. Real strength is about protecting others, standing up for what's right, and choosing to help instead of harm. Pretty words, Zethrak replied, but the galaxy is not a kind place. It could be, Jake said, if enough people chose to make it. That way. Administrator Velox had been listening quietly, but now he spoke up. What you're proposing sounds idealistic. How do we know the humans won't use their superior technology to dominate others the way the Vorthans have? Jake smiled. Because if that's what we wanted, we would have done it already. Our ships have been watching this station for days. We could have taken control at any time. Instead, we tried diplomacy first. We only revealed our capabilities when one of our people was attacked. And even then, Lisa added, we used the minimum force necessary to make our point. We could have disabled the entire station, but we only targeted Vorthan military equipment. A small voice spoke from near the door. Excuse me. Everyone turned to see a Keth standing in the doorway. It was the same artist that Amy had spoken with in the cultural district. He looked terrified but determined. I am sorry to interrupt, the Keth said, but I wanted to thank the humans. Administrator Velox looked annoyed. This is a private meeting. Let him speak, Jake said. The Keth stepped into the room, his large eyes focused on Amy. You spoke up for us yesterday. You tried to stop the violence, and today you made the strong ones listen. He paused, then looked directly at Zethrak. For the first time in my life, I saw a Vorthan apologize to someone weaker than himself. Zethrak's expression darkened, but he said nothing. Commander, Jake said, this is what we're talking about. Your people are feared throughout the Federation, but they're not respected. Fear only lasts as long as you're the strongest. Respect lasts forever. And you think changing our ways will make us stronger? Zethrak asked. I think it will make you better, Amy replied. And sometimes, better is more important than stronger. Jake looked around the room at all the alien representatives. We're not asking anyone to become weak. We're asking you to use your strength differently, to protect instead of oppress, to cooperate instead of dominate. A tall alien with silver skin raised one of her 4 hands. What about the intelligence files? You gathered? Will you share that technology with others? Some of it, Jake replied. We'll share defensive technologies, medical advances, and peaceful exploration tools. But we'll keep the military applications to ourselves unless they're needed to protect innocent people. How do we know you won't change your minds? Another alien asked. Danny stepped forward. Because we're not trying to rule anyone. We have our own worlds to explore and develop. We want to trade, learn, and grow alongside other species. But we won't be pushed around while we do it. Zethrak had been quiet for several minutes, but now he spoke. You have made your point, humans. Your species is more capable than we believed. But strength, without the will to use it, is as meaningless. We have the will, Jake said quietly. We just prefer not to use it unless we have to. And if someone threatens you again, then they'll face the consequences, Amy said, touching her bandaged wrist. Just like you did. Zethrak stared at her. For a long moment, then slowly nodded. I understand. Administrator Velox looked relieved. So we have an agreement? The humans will be accepted as full members of the Federation, and the Vorthans will work with them to establish new protocols for protecting smaller species? We have an agreement, Jake confirmed. Zethrak hesitated, then nodded as well. The Vorthan Empire accepts this arrangement. As the meeting ended and the various aliens began to leave, Zethrak approached Jake's team. Captain Morrison, I have underestimated your species. This will not happen again. Good, Jake replied. And Commander, if you ever put your hands on one of my people again, the consequences will be much more severe than an apology. Zethrak's eyes flashed, but he nodded. Understood. After Zethrak left, Amy walked back to the window overlooking the cultural district. Below, she could see Keth artists displaying their work openly, without looking over their shoulders in fear. Do you think it will work? She asked. Do you think they'll really change? Some will, Jake replied. Others won't. But now everyone knows the humans won't tolerate bullying. That changes everything. Then he joined them at the window. Look at that, he said, pointing to a group of aliens from different species, talking together in the plaza below. They're actually talking to each other instead of staying in separate groups. It's a start, Lisa said. Jake activated his communicator. Admiral Parker, this is Morrison. Mission accomplished. You can return to standard patrol routes. Acknowledged, Captain. Well done. All ships are departing the area. As Jake's team prepared to return to their ship, the Keth artist approached. Them one more time. Humans, he said, my people have a saying. The tree that stands alone breaks in the storm, but the forest stands forever. That's beautiful, Amy said. You have helped us become part of the forest again, the Keth replied. We will not forget. Walking back through the corridors of Nexus Prime, Jake noticed the difference. Aliens who had ignored the humans before now nodded respectfully as they passed. Species that had seemed afraid before now stood a little straighter. Captain, Amy said as they reached their docking bay. What happens now? Jake looked back at the massive station one more time. Now we start building the kind of galaxy we want to live in, one relationship at a time. As the new dawn prepared to depart, Jake received messages from several species, requesting formal meetings with Earth. The word was already spreading throughout the Federation that a new player had arrived. one that was both powerful and principled. Amy sat in her quarters, writing her report about their first contact with the galactic community. At the end, she added a personal note. Today I learned that sometimes the best way to make peace is to be prepared for war. But more importantly, I learned that real strength comes from knowing when not to fight. Outside her window, the stars stretched endlessly in all directions, full of possibilities that hadn't existed just days before. Humanity had announced its arrival in the galaxy, not as conquerors or victims, but as a species that would stand up for what was right, no matter the odds. The galaxy would never be quite the same.